Hi YouTube, how are you? Long time no see. As you can see, my eye is very red and sore, and I'm full of cold, so I'm having a great time. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to make a box cushion. This is going to be different to the one we made a few years back. Obviously, this is going to be an updated version, and it's not going to be piped. This one's going to be top stitched, so I'm going to show you how we top stitch really well and how you just make a high quality box cushion, because I know from experience when you try and get a job in an upholstery workshop, that is a major thing. If you can do a box cushion, if you can sew and you can sew a box cushion, that's a major ticking point for an employer. Or if you're starting your own business, you're going to need to know how to do this. So I'm going to show you how to do this and how to do it really well. And also while we're here, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you've been enjoying our content, and don't forget the FaceliftAcademy.com is now available too. So on the free membership for the Academy, you get access to 5 exclusive videos, plus all the downloadable PDFs, and you can also join our exclusive Facebook group. But if you're passionate about learning and you've been enjoying our YouTube content, then definitely go for the paid membership on the Academy. There's a lot more detailed, exclusive content that you're not going to find anywhere else on the internet, plus monthly mastermind webinars with me, plus access to our Facebook group and all the downloads and all that cool stuff that you get along with it. So as you can see here, guys, we've got a cushion interior. Now, this is ready. Apologies, it's a bit old and tatty. Yeah, it's been here for a while, but we're just going to use this. So this is our interior. What you would do if you were making a cushion cover for this interior, and it works the same the other way around. If you've already got the cover and you need to order an interior, or if you're making an interior for the cover. Okay, so this is a box cushion. So we've got a front, a back, and 2 sides. Obviously, it miters out as well. It's not square, so we're going to need to make sure we get the measurements perfect. So when ordering an interior for a cover or making a cover for an interior, the concept is always going to stay the same. So this is 22.5 inches on the front. So if the interior is 22.5, we want to make the cover 21.5. So the reason we make the interior an inch bigger than the cover is it fills it out nicely. I know some manufacturers don't recommend adding an inch on. I'm always going to tell you to add an inch on. So if your cushion interior is 20 by 20, the cover needs to be 19 by 19 and vice versa. So if you've got a 20 by 20 cover, you order a 21 by 21 interior. So that is the same. Any way you do it, the interior is always an inch bigger than the cover. Okay? So now, guys, obviously it was 22.5 inches on the front. So let's measure the back. So the back is... So as you can see, the back of the cushion is 20.5 inches. So there's a 2-inch difference. The second to last thing we need to get is our front to back measurement. So that is the depth of our cushion. So as you can see, 21.5 front to back. Right, so the last thing we need to get is our border size. So our border is this part here, the thickness of the cushion all the way around. The depth of the foam, you don't want the Dacron on top, you just want the depth of the foam. So the depth of the foam here is 4 inches plus the Dacron on top, but we only want the foam size. We don't want like the rest of it. So we just need to measure the border size of the foam. So it's 4 inches. Okay, so I'm just going to draw out the cushion, guys, so you can understand the size and the size we cut it. So here's our cushion, guys. So as you can see, it's got a taper at the back. So the interior is 22.5. So we want the cover to finish 21.5. That means we need to cut the cover the same size as the foam, so 22.5. So we'll cut the cover 22.5 by the time it's sewn, because obviously we lose half an inch each side for sewing. So 22.5 cut size will be a 21.5 finish size. So with all upholstery, we always use a 1/2 inch sewing allowance. So anything you sew up, you always allow a 1/2 inch sewing allowance. If you're sewing this whole cushion up, you're going to lose 1/2 inch here, 1/2 inch here, 1/2 inch here, 1/2 inch here. So hopefully that makes sense. You always use a 1/2 inch sewing allowance when you're doing upholstery. So the cover needs to be 21.5. So we cut the cover 22.5. Then once it's sewn, it will finish 21.5. The interior is 20.5, so we will cut the cover the same size. So when it's finished, it will finish 19.5. At the back, we'll cut that 20.5 inches. So once it's sewn up, that'll be 19.5 inches. So the sides was 21.5. So we'll cut the cover exactly the same size because we want it to be an inch bigger. Obviously, we always want the interior to be an inch bigger than the cover. The side of the cushion is 21.5. We will cut the cover the same size. And then by the time it's sewn, it will finish 19.5. So, excuse my awful drawing here, guys. So, this is our cover cut size. So 20.5 at the back, 22.5 on the front and 21.5 on the sides. So once that is sewn up, that will be 21.5 on the front, 19.5 on the backs, and 20.5 front to back. This is our cover size. This is what we cut it. Once it's sewn, this is what it finishes. Hopefully that makes sense. So say you made this cushion cover and it's 21.5, 19.5 by 20.5 on the sides. You order it this size. You order it an inch bigger. Standard, any cushion, always order it an inch bigger. Unless you're doing feather jackets or something like that, you speak to your cushion manufacturer and you tell them the size it's going to be, and they'll make allowances for you. But with square bits of foam, standard cushions, you always... The interior is an inch bigger, front to back, side to side. The only time it isn't is on the border. So the border, we know the border of this cushion is going to be 4 inches. So we will cut the border 5. So when it's sewn, it will be 4. We don't add any on the border. If you've got a 4-inch border on the cushion, order the interior 4 inches as well. That's the only part of the cushion you don't add allowance onto. But with the front to back, side to side, you do to fill it out, but the border, I don't allow anything extra. Now we've explained that, now we can cut our cushion cover. Let's get our fabric out and I'll show you how we cut it and how we mark it, and then we'll sew it up. We're going to cut our cushion cover now, guys, so I'm going to use a pen so you can see clearly, but don't use a pen unless you're absolutely confident. I don't recommend using a pen to mark fabric unless it's like a thin tip and you're only marking very close to the edges where it's going to get sewn in. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to mark it with a pen so you can see it clearly. So first thing I'm going to do is just start by squaring off my fabric. So I've used this square straight edge to square my fabric off. And the reason I'm doing this is just so I know that, you know, my cushion is starting nice and square. So now, guys, we need to get our sizes and start marking out our cushion. So first size I'm going to get is front to back. So obviously this is a velvet, and the pile is going this way. So this is going to be the front of the cushion. This is going to be the back of the cushion where the zip is. So the first thing I need to do is get my front to back measurement, which is 21.5. So I'm just going to go there and there. The next thing I need to do is get my biggest size, which is the front of the cushion. So the front is 22.5. So if I go across there, put a mark there, that is 22.5. Now I'm going to do the same at the back. Now the reason I do that, I'm just going to join these up now. So that is a square cushion. So that's 22.5 side to side and 21.5 front to back. Now we know that this is mitered, meaning it's angled at the back. So what we do is we come to the back of the cushion. So as you can see, our cushion is 22.5 inches side to side. So what we need to do is find the middle. So the middle of that is 22.5 is 11.25. So what we're going to do here is just go to 11.25 and just put a little mark in there. So we know that that's our halfway point. Now we need to find the original size. So the back needs to be 20.5. So that is 10.25 either side of that line. So we're going to need to go 10.25 this side and 10.25 this side. So let's do that. So 10.25 this side and 10.25 this side. So now what we need to do is draw our lines right to the point of the front, and the same on this side. So that is our cushion. So that's how we do a mitre, you know, on the back of a cushion. We're just going to cut that out now, mark the zip. So the zip will be here, and then we can flip it over and cut the other side. So we're just going to mark the back where the zip is. So I'm going to put it right at the edge, just because I know that when that's sewn in, you're going to lose that as well. So that's where the zip is, at the back of the cushion. Obviously you can mark the front as well if you need to. So now all we need to do is cut the other side, because obviously there's two sides to a cushion. So what we're going to do now, guys, is copy that basically on the other side. So all I'm going to do is flip that over, because you want to go face to face. The reason we're doing that is so both cushion fabrics are face to face, exactly how they need to be. So doing this makes you get a perfect replica of the other side. There we go. So I'm going to put the zip on the back again. There we have it, guys. That is the exact size that we needed it. So that'll be 22.5 on the front. Once that's sewn, it's going to be 21.5. At the back, that's going to be 20.5. Once it's sewn, it's going to finish 19.5. And then front to back, it should be 21.5 to finish 20.5. So that's perfect. So the last thing I want to do is round these corners off, just at the front. So I can do that both sides. So that's our cushion top and bottom cut. Now we need to cut our borders and our zip border. I'm just going to put that aside. So when you're cutting a cushion, a border, obviously you have to follow the way the fabric goes. So we're going to cut just long strips. So these strips will go, so a full border will come all the way round and we'll probably finish about here. Then we're going to have to do some extra pieces to sort of come to here. Then there's going to be a zip border that comes to around here. So the reason we bring zip borders around the corner is because these are quite big, thick seat cushions. So as long as these aren't on show, meaning these are on a sofa, there's arms, you're not going to see the size of this cushion. It doesn't matter, we can bring the zip border around the sides. But if it's on a chair where the side of the cushion is on show, then you don't want to bring the zip around the corner. I mean, you can finish the zip on the corners, but it's going to be much harder to get the cushion in because it's quite a thick, bulky cushion. So that's the reason, another reason we bring the zip borders around the corner, to make it easier to get the interiors in. So guys, the last thing we need to do now is our borders and our zip border. So our borders need to be a full width, going to need at least one full width per cushion in general. So remember I said to you, we don't need to add any onto our foam. So our foam is 4 inches, so our border needs to be 4 inches, but we still need to cut it 5 inches because we're still going to lose ½ inch each side for sewing. So we only allow extra on the sewing for the border, we don't allow extra on the foam for the border. So we're going to cut this 5, so I'm just going to mark 5 there and 5 there. There is our border, so we need to cut that out. We need to cut our zip border as well. So what I'm going to do for our zip border, I'm going to cut another full width, because I know that a full width, half a width is going to be plenty, because this cushion is 20.5 on the back, and I know that half a width of this is about 28 inches, so there's going to be plenty to come around the sides. So when you're measuring your zip border, guys, you need to allow more than your sewing. So this border is going to finish 4. So what I like to do with zip borders, so if it's 4 inch finish, I halve it, which is 2, then I add 1.25 inches. So it's 3.25 inches is my zip border size. So you add 1 inch for sewing and an extra 1/4 inch for the zip, because you're going to need a bit extra. So 3.25. So that is our zip border. So now we're just going to cut our zip border, cut all our borders and our zip border. Then we're going to cut our extra pieces for the sides. So that's our border. Now let's cut our zip border. So that's our zip border. So all I'm going to do here is cut that in half. So all I'm doing is laying that nice and flat. And all I'm going to do is run the scissors through there. So that is our zip border. So once there's a zip sewn into here, that's going to be the right size. So once we've taken, once you've taken your sewing there, that's going to be about the same size as this border here. So I hope that makes sense. So that's our zip. Here's our border. Obviously we have to mark the top, so we know which side is sewn to the top. So the last thing we need is 2 pieces for the side of the cushion, because obviously the full border is not going to be quite enough to go all the way around. So we just need to cut 2 strips of 5 inches. Again, making sure that the pile goes the same way. You can't just put odd pieces down the sides. You do have to make sure the pile's going the same way, like you've done it properly. So let's just cut those out. So I'll just mark the top there on both of them. So I'm just going to show you how this cushion comes together now. That's our top and bottom of our cushion. So I'm just going to show you how the whole thing comes together now. But the first thing we're going to do is put a couple of nips in. So I just want to mark the middle So there. And I'm going to do the same. So I'm just going to put a nip in the middle there. So what we can do, we get our full border, and we can do exactly the same with that. We can put a nip in the top, and a nip in the bottom. So now when we start sewing it, we know we can use the nips. So once that's sewn on, that will come to about there. Then our zip border. I mean, we could do the same with the zip as well. If you want to, you can nip it, just so you know you stay in the centre. Now we can also nip the back of the cushion as well. So you can see that the zip border is only going to come to there. So you're just going to have to add a little piece in here, which is what these are for. So that little piece will go in there. And that's how the whole thing comes together. So now let's get over to the sewing table and start sewing all this up. Right, guys, so the first thing we're going to do is sew our zip border up. So what we have essentially got to do is put that in between there. First of all, I'm going to cut the zip to the size I'm going to need it. So I'm just going to give myself a bit extra here. Cut that off about there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the first side on. What I do is I fold that under by about 3/4 of an inch. And then you have 1/2 inch that side. So what I do is I just fold that under, and then what I do is I drop the foot down and then drop the needle down, so that is now in place. So I'm just going to do a couple of stitches. So now what I can do, guys, obviously this has got a pattern in it, this fabric, so I can see. So what I'm doing here is I'm folding this under and just making sure I stay nice and straight. And then I can sort of run my finger across there. And I can see now, if I look down at here and here, I can see that I'm straight. So now I can just start stitching. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this foot right up against the zipper. Just keep going. So we're going to do the same all the way down. So that is one side done. So what I'm going to do is trim. So now, basically I need to do the other side. And the good thing about these sewing tables, guys, is you can sort of put your zip on and see how big it's going to be. And I can see that it's going to be a bit bigger than the border by about 1/2 inch, but we can trim it off afterwards. So I'm going to take a bit more now this side, try and make it even. So little back stitch at the end just to make sure it doesn't come undone. So there we have it, guys. So as you can see, this side I took slightly more because I knew that it was going to be too wide. So let's have a look now. So it's still a 1/4 inch bigger than it needs to be, but that's fine. So the next thing I'm going to do is put my zipper head on. So this is something that takes getting used to. So what I do is I pop this open at the top. Make sure this is even, cut nice and straight. Now here is my zipper head. This is the larger zipper head to go with the larger zipper. I think it's a number 5. So I just drop down to there until it stops, till it hits. And I'll try and do the same with this side. Try and get them perfectly even. And then what I do is, so I use my middle finger and my thumb to hold the zip in place. Then I use my index finger to push the zip down till it catches. Did you see that? So there you go, perfect. So that is now on. So now that zipper is on. So that's open. That's closed. So now we can put that aside because that'll go on sort of in a little while once we've done the top of the cushion. So let's put that zip border aside and then start putting the cushion together on the border. So here we are, guys. This is the top of our cushion. So the face of the cushion, this is the front. And here we have our border. Obviously, we've got our nips as well, so that's great. So we can tell now that we need to be around here. It doesn't need to be exact. It's rare that a customer's going to go around the cushion and go, oh, this border starts slightly different around to that side. It's never going to happen, as long as you're close. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just laying that on, and I'm just going to start. I'm probably going to start about here, towards the top of the cushion. So I'm just going to go, and then all we're going to do, guys, is just run that up. So we've got our perfect 1/2 inch seam allowance here, so I know if I keep the fabric touching along this black bit of Velcro, we've got a perfect 1/2 inch. As always, guys, whenever you start stitching something, you stitch forward and then backwards and then forward, and then you start, because you always put a back stitch in, because if you don't put a back stitch in, it can come undone quite easily. So anytime you start sewing something, you always do a back stitch. So now what we're going to do, guys, is just run this up. Now what I do is I make sure the fabrics are straight here, so that these two are nice and even. I grab here, and I also grab here as well. So I sort of just guide it, but the machine does the majority of the work. I'm just holding the fabric so it doesn't slide. So as we come towards the corner, you put little nips in here to sort of make it easier to go around the corners. So what I'm doing here now is I'm going to use my knee. So I've got a knee control here. So this lever controls here, controls the foot. See that? So now I can manipulate that. So I just want to make a nice curve here. And I can also use my hand control, which is here, guys. If I want to go nice and slowly, I can use my hand control. Just sort of go nice and slow around the corner. And now we're just carrying on, staying nice and straight on that 1/2 inch line. I'm just going to stop there, guys. Now, as you can see, I've done a back stitch to stop. So now we need to think about adding our piece on and our zip border. So, guys, we need to add a piece here. So we just need to add, I'm just going to cut. So these are my side pieces, the extra pieces I cut earlier. So I'm just going to cut a nice straight as my ass. So now I'm going to join that onto here. Then we can join our zip border onto here. Then we can just carry on sewing all the way around until we get, you know, the whole border and the zip border on. Then we attach the top. Then we top stitch it. The first thing is I didn't leave myself enough here. So I made myself a little mistake here. So I've had to release this a little bit so I can get this, because it was too far. I couldn't sew. So I need to sew this onto here. Just make sure the piles go the same way. So now I'm just going to put a join in here. Straight line down here, guys. Just a nice straight line just to join and put this extra piece on. So now we can even put the zip border onto here as well. So what I'm doing with this zip border, guys, I'm just cutting it nice and straight because we're not on the straight side here. So just straight down. This is going to seal our zip border as well. Again, back stitch. So what I mean by sealing the zip border is, see that's stitched across there now. So now the zipper can't go further than that point. Okay. So now we've got that all on. We can just carry on with that. We can carry on sewing all the way around here until we meet the border on the other side. So now we can carry on. So what we're going to do here, guys, is depending on which way you want these, you can lay them flat, you can lay them this side, you can lay them this side. Doesn't really matter, but as long as you do them the same. So I'm just going to... So we just carry on stitching until... So you just keep looking until you can see that the corner's here. So now, again, using my foot, I'm going to put a little nip in here just to sort of ease it up a bit. So now we're just round the corner. So that corner wasn't rounded. We didn't round off the back corners because you don't really need to on the back corners. We just carry on nice and straight with the zip border. Again, guys, I'm just going to get this to the corner and just go around the corner slightly. So I can see there that I'm going to make a slight nip in there. And then, again, we're coming around this way, making sure, because I'm going to have to join onto here, so I need to make sure I leave enough. So a couple more stitches, a couple of back stitches, and we're out. So now, what we need to do is get this to here and add in our pieces in as well. So this way, we need to flip the cushion over, and now we're going to do the cushion top on the top and then the borders on the bottom. The principle stays the same, but you can actually get a bit more of a rounded corner this way. And always finish with your needle down. Always, guys, finish with your needle down, because if you pull it and your needle isn't down, you're going to lose it all. So I'm just going to do a couple more stitches, guys, and we're going to leave it come out, because we need to figure out how much we need to finish. So as you can see, is how much we need, plus ½ inch. So what I'm going to do is just lay that on there. And I'm just going to put a little nip there. So as long as I cut that straight, now that is perfect to join from there to there and then there to there. So let's try and join them. Hold on, let's make sure that's going the same way as well. Make sure your borders are all going the same way. So that's down, down, perfect. So first thing I'm going to do is join it onto the border. Now we've joined that onto there. So now I'm going to join onto the zip border. So I'm just going to sew down here as well. But I know I'm a bit tight, so I'm not going to take a full ½ inch. I'm probably just going to go a little bit lower. So we can just sew from this point here where we stopped earlier on the zip, and now you can see that that's perfectly flat. We haven't got too much excess anywhere. So it's at this point, guys, where you'd see, you know, if you've got too much border, you'll see it here. It won't lay flat. When you sew it up, you're going to have to lose some. So always cut your threads off as you go as well. It's a really good thing to do. So we're joining up with the other one now, a couple of back stitches, and we're out. That is one side of the cushion done. So now what we need to do is put the top on. So the main thing we need to do is to make sure that our corners meet up. See, what I can do here is I can feel there that that is my corner. So I can just put a nip in there. So when I put the top on, I want to make sure that that front corner falls here. I'm going to do the same on all the other four corners. So you can see there's the other corner there. So you just want to make sure that you're straight. You can do that by just holding the fabric up, make sure the fabric's straight. There's our other corner. So now we're going to do the same on the backs as well, on the zip border. So again, we just want to make sure we're nice and straight. So now we've got 4 points to aim for when putting our top on. So let's go and get the other side of the cushion, put it on, run it up, and then once that's done, we can think about top stitching. If we was going middle, which would work, we want to make sure that's on there, that nip is on that nip there, and that's the center. But that's not the main point, because it doesn't matter essentially where the center is. You want to make sure that your corners are the same. That is the most important thing, because if your corner doesn't fall in the same place, your corner's going to sit like that. So it's really important that you get your corners on right, guys. So I'm going to start on this corner here. I'm going to start just around this corner. So I've made sure that that's on the corner. Now, some people like to pin these or clamp them in place. Whatever you're comfortable with, guys. Honestly, whatever makes you most comfortable. I'm just going to drop that under there and get them out of the way. Get them threads out of the way. Get that needle down. And now we're in place. So what I'm going to do is start here. We're just going to run this up. So making sure our nip falls on the corner. So now we've got to this point. Now I can pull this to see there's my nip and there's my corner. So if I hold them two together and pull here and look down here, there's no excess. It looks like it's going to sit nice and flat, which is exactly what we want. If you've got too much fabric on the top or the bottom, you know that you've got too much. So you're going to have to lose it somewhere. And when I say lose it, I mean, you know, you're going to have to start taking it apart and figuring out where you've got too much fabric or why you've got too much fabric. So, but here, I know that's going to work. So now we can just carry on. So we made it around that corner. So we want to do the same again here, which is going to be fine. That is going to fall perfect. And we've got plenty here. You know, we're not pulling too tight. This is all going to fall very nicely. So just making sure again that these are nice and flat up against each other. So here we go, and see our nip here is right on the corner, which is exactly where we want it to be. And obviously this is the back corner, so it doesn't need to be rounded. So we could just keep stitching till we get to about 1/2 inch away. Leave the needle down. Put a little nip in here. And then what we're doing is we're sort of moving all of this out of the way and just carrying on around the corner. And then, again, we're going to do the same as what we've done the whole way around. We're going to pull that, checking that the corner falls on the corner, which it does. And we haven't got too much here. We haven't got too much excess. So again, we're going to... So... Again, guys, we come towards this corner. Now we do the same. We put a little nip in here. So now all we want to do is do exactly the same. So see, now we can see if that's going to lay flat. See, if we had too much fabric here, if there was this, then you'd know you'd have an issue because you've got too much fabric. You'd have to lose some of this. But that is perfect. That's sitting nice and flat. It's really great to trim your threads as you go, guys, as well. Don't leave a load of loose threads inside a cushion. It's very rare that a customer will even open a cushion and look inside, but it's good practice to just trim off your threads as you go. Just leave a nice tidy job. So here we go. There to there. Nice and straight. So here we go, just here to here now. There's not too much fabric. It's nice and flat. It's exactly how we wanted. Here we go, we're joining up with the other one now. As always, a couple of back stitches. There we're out. So, what do we do now? So now, the main thing to do is get inside and check all your corners line up. So what we do here is we get the zip, and we open her up. So now we turn all this inside out, and what we do is we get into the corners and we push this out like this. Good. Same over here. Those corners look good to me. So you should always check your work when you're doing stuff like this. Always check that you've got no holes. Check that all your work's good. Check that your corners are right. So that is how you do a pretty standard box cushion. That is a box cushion done without any piping, any top stitching. That's a standard box cushion. But we're going to top stitch this. So what we do now is we need to change the foot on the machine. So I'll show you how we do that. Then I'll show you how we top stitch it. Then it's all done. So this is our top stitching foot. So we're now going to put this on. This little blade here that sits on the seam and keeps us nice and straight and make sure our stitch stays nice and consistent. So I'm going to put that on now, and then we can top stitch it. Right, so now guys, we need to top stitch it. So we're just going to figure out if we're going to do it on the top or the border, which is normally always the border, which is going to be here. So on the inside, as you can see, the selvage needs to face down. So if I'm stitching along here, the selvage inside has to be down, which is as it is now. So selvage is down, I'm going to stitch along here. So let me show you. Right, so what I'm going to do, guys, is just start off here in the back corner. So I've got my selvage going this way. My selvage is all going that way, as you can see. So then I use this guide to sit on that line. Drop my needle down. So as you can see, the guide is basically keeping us on that line. It's going to keep our stitch nice and consistent. So what you have to do when you're top stitching is keep, as you work along, making sure everything's flat, making sure there's no extra fabric underneath here, because you don't want to stitch over another bit of fabric. So as you come towards corners, it gets a bit tricky because you've got to kind of work it round and it's quite tight. And just keep following around, guys. So just follow it around, keep going all the way around, do both sides, and then I'll show you how the top stitch looks at the end. So here it is, our top stitching. This is how it should look, full and filled. Nice and full. Here's our top stitching on both, so the top stitch is on both sides. Here's our extra piece of border that we need to put in. Here's our zip. That obviously runs around, just around the corner. So that is how you make a box cushion and top stitch it.